media source for what's going on here in Capitol Hill, but also, his coverage over the years has extended to the Central District as well. You know what I'm saying? And so, always appreciative of the Capitol Hill Seattle blog for their coverage, not just to Capitol Hill, but really, beyond Seattle, Central District, Mount Baker, Leschi, Madison, and everything else. And local neighborhood news is very important. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So he's going to come in. We got a bit of a shorter show today, a bit of a lighter show. We had a heavy show yesterday, but I wanted to share with everybody here something, if you're able to get it over there on that end. But I wanted to share with everybody something. So today I'm talking to, like I said, a group of young media, young journalists, people who aspire to be in media. And when I was thinking about what we're going to talk about, I found an email that I sent to Eric Calligraphy. And I sent this email to Eric Calligraphy on May 22nd, 2016. So this is 4 years ago. I'll just read a small part of it here. It says, just sharing a document for your feedback is welcome. It says, Converge is a mixed media platform catering to content creators in the Pacific Northwest that focus on urban and ethnic topics. Converge is the platform where Northwest content creators come together for advocation, distribution, and monetization of their creative works. It goes on and on. I think that we'll actually put this up on a blog post today on our website. But I only bring that up to say this, we're definitely in a spotlight here in our city right now, but that was 4 years ago. You get what I'm saying? And four years ago, and even a career well before that, but 4 years ago. I mean, the best thing, and this is what I'm gonna tell these young people today, is man, just stay at it. And we're able to be in this space and keep up, because every day for almost 4 years we did something. Recorded a podcast. You know what it's like to record a podcast and 12 people listen to it, but you still just keep recording. You know what I'm saying? And big shout outs to people like Casey Carter, who's continued, in the podcast world and everything else. We started making videos with our iPhone. It was the Camera Phone Collective, but we just kept making videos, kept writing articles. You know what it is to work on an article or a blog that you think is going to be fantastic, and you get like 6 people to read it, and that probably includes my mom, who read from both email accounts. But the whole point is that, like I said, 4 years ago is when me and Eric Calligraphy came up with this whole idea of Converge. So the best thing that I could tell people out there, and what I'm going to tell these young people today, is, man, just stay after it. Stay committed. And, man, every failure, because there's lots of failures, man, the failures make you better if you know how to learn from them. It's a lot of failures along the way, a lot of disappointments, but it's those disappointments that prepare you to be able to step into the main stage.
I love that. It really does make you stronger. And you're so right about that, because I think in the YouTube era, just as phones began to have more and more capabilities, right, there's a lot of people in this sphere and in this space. And so sometimes that's discouraging, but you are so right, man. Slow and steady, man, wins this race. You got to keep at it. And I think when you have that passion, allow that passion to carry you forward in those moments when it seems like things are really low and things are not going your way. You and I connected on the media side right away. I mean, you shared your history with me. I shared mine immediately. We're like, man, the stories of our community are not being told. Let's do it. Let's do podcasts. Let's figure this out. You were out there covering Bubbler and Brown Sugar, just doing the events that mattered to community. And you're so right in terms of keeping it going.
Right. I mean, and the other thing is like I said, Converge has been covering, stories in the Central District now for a few years. And this all started with just us covering how the protests that had moved that Friday, that had moved from the Central District, from the downtown into the International District, and actually made it up there to 12th, which is kind of the border with the Central District, would impact our neighborhood. Yeah. And that's where all of our coverage, every podcast we did, every video we did, every article we wrote was just about the Central District. And stayed in that lane, and stayed within the resources that we had. But the very first story that we covered about the protest was just about the ID. And if you recall at the time, the story was that black thugs had went to the ID. That's the International District for people not from Seattle, formerly called Chinatown. That's the International District. But the story is that black thugs had gone through the ID and tore up the ID. This was the Friday before the Saturday, the big, I guess you say, riot downtown. Mm-hmm. And me being there, and having a camera on the ground, the only one on the ground, and, was able to report back like, man, that's not true. The people who came in and tore up the International District, that kicked in Bank of America, kicked in Washington Federal, and broke the windows of all those small businesses, they weren't from our neighborhood, right, and really didn't look anything like us. Yeah. But that was just a story that we're covering for our neighborhood. And then everything just picked up from there. The whole point of it is that it was 4 years on this Converge thing, 4 years of every day creating something that when now this transferred into protest season allowed us to be ready.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, you were on your way home and happened to see all of that craziness. So it was like, again, the spontaneity of it all is just like it was in divine order, because it wasn't even as though you were trying to find a story. You get what I'm saying? Which I think actually happens a lot in the media space as people are chasing down stories. That wasn't what you were doing.
Well, I think as well, because we're local neighborhood news, and I'm probably Justin might be able to speak to that as well. There isn't a sensationalism factor in reporting about your neighborhood. If you're writing about the Central District, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of my stuff, be lucky, a few hundred posts. I did get a few very big articles that even the Seattle Times picked up later on. One was on predatory real estate companies that I wrote. But the average 300 people, 500 people, sometimes 16, 17,000 people. But it's the fact of just doing what you love. You know what I'm saying? And you get crushed, you be like, yeah, 10 views, you know what I'm saying? But just, staying after it and staying after it. So, again, man, this is ConvergeMedia, a 4-year journey, a previous career journey well before that. But 4 years we've been at it. And so it's a journey of 4 years, that has us right here in front of the camera today. So.
And you know what? It's beautiful to tell that history. And I'm sure that a lot of our newer audience members really appreciate understanding where Converge really comes from, because so many of them saw you just tirelessly on the front lines of all of this. And so it's great for them to understand who you are and where that comes from. You've been about telling the stories in a real way and putting it out there for people to really absorb. So I love being able to tell this history right here.
Right. I mean, but I'll be honest with you. I've trained literally a lifetime. I've trained my whole career to be right here. So, it's not a fluke. We definitely bumped to a lot of luck out here, though, by the way. Luck has been on our side in a lot of different ways. But, trained a whole career to be here. We're going to take a break in a minute and bring Justin on. But before we do, so today is Blackout.
Today, I guess, it's Blackout.
Do you know about Blackout?
I don't know enough about it. I'm still learning myself.
The young producers over there on the set were saying that to July 7th, you see a lot of stuff on social media, is where people are being encouraged to buy as many things, or buy only, if possible, from black-owned businesses, black-owned retailers, black-owned restaurants, and things like that.
It's good to uplift that, I think, as part of this kind of equity movement. A lot of folks pushing for, change. That's going to be one of the things as we begin to see the dollars change and the way that things are, dollars are spent in this country. A lot of that is, people are looking for that to change too. So I'm not surprised by this movement. I know there's people that have been working on a larger movement, trying to do a whole blackout month. So we'll see how things progress.
Yeah, I mean, economics in any community is key.
Yeah.
And for us as a country, the more communities that are economically sound, then it's really a more stable foundation nationally for everybody. Everybody does better when all communities do better economically.
Absolutely. And I think that that's what a lot of folks are wanting when you follow the dollars. And I remember you had a declaration a while back as all of this stimulus money was flowing into the country. You were like, man, follow the money. And I think that that's where people are at right now. They're following the money. They saw that money go to some large institutions. So now folks are wanting to make sure that there's some dollars that really trickle in to communities of the global majority.
It's good. Fantastic. We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, we've got Justin Carter of the Capitol Hill Seattle blog. You are watching the Morning Update Show. All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. I'm your host, Omari Salisbury, and right now I'm joined by they say I'm busy, but this guy is really busy. He's at least got to be the busiest journalist on Capitol Hill. You know what I'm saying? I'll come in at a second, maybe. Justin from Capitol Hill Seattle blog, welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
All right, good. Now we want to make sure everybody can hear him good, right? You guys are good over there?
Yeah, last time I had a little mic issue, so I'll speak up.
Hey, Rod, Justin, we can't hear you. That just means that people follow you, man, and, they're interested in what you have to say.
Yeah, well, it also means I spend a lot of time at a keyboard and not in front of the camera.
Well, both of us, I think, have faces for radio.
Thank you.
So, all right, man. So let's get into it. We'll end up with the chop because lots of stuff there. First of all, this tax that was passed by City Hall, I think it was 7-2. What do you know about it?
Yeah, I mean, Seattle probably has a progressive revenue source to get through the COVID-19 economic crisis. There's still barriers. The downtown business groups are against it. The mayor probably against it. It's unclear what kind of legal barriers they'll have to jump over, but there's a lot of cross-group support. Teresa Mosqueda built a big raft of support for this thing. It'll raise somewhere around $200 million a year to help the city get through what's going to be a huge hole in its budget. And then after that, hopefully things like housing, business programs, community programs.
Well, the mayor already promised $100 million to black people.
Sure. The way that things go, you have to make sure and see what gets counted from what pile, right?
I'm just saying, whenever people start talking about money, the hands go out real quick because she hasn't really indicated as to where the $100 million that she's saying is going to go to black people. 105 this year, by the way, because $5 million for tutoring, where it's going to come from.
For sure, and that's a real lesson out of things like tax Amazon or this business tax is that, when you're watching City Hall, you do have to keep track of how many different entities are taking credit for things so you don't double count it. It's kind of like the kid that finds a quarter, puts it in their pocket, thinks they're going to buy candy, falls out, the next kid finds the quarter, thinks they're going to buy candy, and they all find out they only have one quarter. That happens a lot at Seattle City Hall.
Okay. And what else is going on, not CHOP related?
Oh, man. Well, we're starting to get back into kind of the rhythm of what CapitolHillSeattle.com does the most. So we're talking to local businesses about how they're getting through the COVID crisis. More restaurants are opening. more.
How's that going? I mean, because it's 50% right now, right?
I mean, it's brutal. It's real tough. I mean, these business owners have had to reinvent themselves in weeks, and now they are able to open, but in a very limited fashion. I think it leaves a real uncertainty about what comes next and who will survive. So far, we haven't seen that many closures, but kind of like the eviction crisis that's probably coming and those kinds of things, you get a sense that there is a reckoning coming. We just don't really know when.
Right. And so my favorite part, I'm always trying to put a silver lining on everything. My favorite part about the thing right now with restaurants is takeaway booze.
Yeah, you enjoy the cocktails. Yeah, I mean, you paying $20 for a mint julep is what Capitol Hill's known for, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just saying it's a saving grace, I think, for a lot of restaurants that they are able to have, either takeaway cocktails or this and that.
Yeah, no, I've had some pretty interesting eating experiences at home. Supporting some of the local restaurants. You get a chance to try some of the places you may not have gone to in your home with friends and family. My kids have had some things they probably wouldn't have had before. At the same time, I think a big part of our experience in shopping and restaurants is going out and being in these spaces. It is sad to not have that, and I wonder how much of it we'll have going forward.
How do you think now when these moratoriums, you talked about an eviction crisis and everything, how does that impact Capitol Hill, Central District, things like that?
Well, it's really difficult to say. There's been a lot of forgiveness. I'm told by a lot of the smaller landlords, not the national chains, that the smaller real estate management companies claim that they have bared the brunt of forgiveness, and that's where you're really going to see pain. You're going to see a lot of them claim they're going to sell, or they're going to have to sell to the bigger companies because they've been forgiving these rents to both commercial and residential tenants, and that's where the real pain will get felt. It's hard to say if that's going to be the truth, but what that would mean is, a much more optimized environment for rents being raised on a whim of these national chains, and will be at the whim of kind of national forces even more here in the neighborhood.
Right. All right. Now,
that's happy talk, huh?
Saying wait. Oh, yeah, actually, because this is your district, our district, and the Central District as well. But this thing is Sawant, Durkin, Sawant. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's going for round 2, round 3. Or what?
I mean, at this point, the story's developed. These are veterans of City Hall. Shama Sawant is the longest-serving city council member now. That commands a certain level of respect, no matter what.
She has the big office down there now.
Yeah, and so she's just going to have friends beyond her movement. Plus, she has the power of both kinds of campaigns from Socialist Alternative, but she can also send out press releases from City Hall. So she has a really big voice and can trumpet all sorts of messaging. So Durkin is, clearly affected by this, and I'm not going to say intimidated, but the movement to write the letter, for example, was a very aggressive step, and I think does signal an escalation in their battle. There's nothing that says that in a decade from now, I don't know how long it'll take, that you could see somebody like Shama Sawant running this city. It's a much different Seattle, but directionally, who's to say that can't happen?
So how fractured, this wasn't a planned question, but how fractured do you think the city of Seattle is along different ideologies and things like that?
Sure. No, wealth tends to put blinders onto people, and it's an extremely wealthy city. I would venture that because of that, there is many, many different levels of living here in the city, and so people are even blind to what happened at CHOP. You can see the comments, you can see the messages from people who did not experience it as closely as even just folks that walked by and saw it, and how misunderstood this movement and effort is. And so I do see at least, there's at least 2 cities here. There's probably billions of cities here, and that battle, will be in simple ways, money versus non-money, haves versus have-nots, and there's a lot of cuts in between. Some people aren't going to be able to stomach that and are going to want to leave because they just can't take that battle. Young people, more educated people who love Seattle, they'll stay, and they'll determine what happens next.
All right. So now, deep in the protest season here, it's 40 some odd days in. So from day one, it was May 29th. I think everything moved up here to Capitol Hill, maybe June 1st or the last day in May. Man, what are some of your takeaways from protest season this far?
Yeah, so I try and avoid questions like this in my career. It's why I'm still doing this. However, I'll venture a couple thoughts. The first is about how easy it is for the mayor, city council, everything about a government to split communities in the way that they need to achieve consensus and political agreement. And the challenge for people is to call that out, identify it, and sometimes fight against it, because it's not evil, but it is a bureaucratic process of splitting up a community.
I mean, Seattle, irregardless of the mayor, this mayor and previous mayors have been good, at least in a black community. I've seen it 100% myself, is to be able to build all kinds of wedges in between different organizations and everything. It's constantly been divide and conquer in the Central District out of City Hall for like decades.
As a local reporter, I've learned whenever I see the words community support or a community advocate or a community leader, that's a warning sign. That's a bell.
So stay away.
So the other part, though, is about media. Coming into this is kind of more personal. I was really worried about how I was going to scale up to cover this. I mean, we're tiny. And we've been at this a long time, but CHS is really small. And the idea of trying to cover an occupation freaked me out, because I went through Occupy a decade ago and had a really hard time covering that too. And it caused a lot of wars here too, and the culture of Capitol Hill and the city. So I was hoping that somebody like you was going to step forward. And it should have been more obvious now in retrospect, but having a real reporter, having people that are dedicated to journalism come forward and also build social media following has been so important, because there's been so many people that have built a following in this whole thing just by turning the camera on. Now that's part of it, but they were not doing any of the work of journalism. And when this is kind of moved to its next phase, I don't know what those people will do. And I worry about all the followers that they have built. I feel really, really pleased to see how much attention that you've gained, and some of the reporters like you. And I really have hope that it can continue and can grow from there.
Man, that's dope. Thank you. Now, the thing is that we've seen this whole protest now. It went from the marches to the Western Barricade to like a day where it was nothing, and then they were like, bro, let's be autonomous. And so then we went to Chaz, we went to CHOP, and we saw now that the CHOP got swept out by the police. And now the neighborhood, I think all the barricades, the police have lifted all the barricades over here on Capitol Hill. The park is still closed. But City Hall is still saying the same things that they were saying. Like, I interviewed the mayor on June 12th, and it's the exact same talking points at June 12th as yesterday. She had released some kind of statement over there, the racial justice equity group in the city. But it's the same thing. I'm committing $100 million here. I'm putting $5 million there. You know, Chief Best is reimagining policing. But in a city, in the 10th, 11th biggest city in America, with all of this brilliance that's here and all of these resources that are here, why do you think that all together now, it's been a month since I talked to her, over 40 days since all this began, how come there's still no meat on the bone? How come the mayor is just delivering talking points and not delivering actual details?
Well, in the end, they're politicians. They have a bureaucratic machine to run, and it takes time, and it takes a process, and that's really where their power ends. And that's why community-driven things can be so powerful. The problem is, like we saw on Sunday, a community-driven effort to help preserve the mural also ended up off mark and not necessarily the right way to go about getting something done. So it is, I think, a major challenge is to find a political answer that comes quickly. I don't think there's many examples of it. The closest thing we're going to see may be this Wednesday, when the city council is finally going to be debating the Seattle police budget, and hopefully some cuts and changes to the way we spend on policing.
Do you think that, barring something else happening, we've seen a lot happen here, But do you think that, barring something else happening here, that the mayor still even feels any feet under her fire under her feet, or any pressure to actually deliver on these talking points? There is no longer a chop. There's still protests in the street. They go down there to the Fems go down to the West Precinct. They went down there last night. CNN has left. The AP has left. The national reporters have left. A lot of the local news reporters have gone on to other things. Does the city hall still feel any pressure to deliver on the promises made when people were in the streets?
I think it's a fair question. I have no idea what's in her head, but looking at it from a big picture standpoint, politicians want to get reelected, usually, unless they're moving on to something else. My assumption is that to successfully continue her career here, Mayor Durkin is going to have to find some concrete actions that deliver on some of the goals. This is a city, or at least an area of the city, that did deliver Shama Sawant to the city council and re-elect her. So, there is force here behind these kinds of initiatives and these kinds of goals. So I'd be surprised to have her throw on blinders to these things completely. Now, will it be as satisfying as the goals that were stated so clearly during the protest and some of the bullet points and the things like Africatown are asking for? It won't ever reach those things. And it ends up being a negotiation of politics. That's why people can't tune out who are here.
Dope. Man, it's always a pleasure to have you here and to be able to get some context. Please let everybody know how they can keep up with you.
Sure. I'm Jay Seattle on Twitter, and you can come read us every day at CapitolHillSeattle.com.
You heard him. He said every day.
Every day.
Make some every day. Every day.
Yeah.
Hey, look, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, Trayana is back on the set. We're going to talk about a few other things occurred in the city yesterday. You are watching the Morning Update Show. All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show, and to the very talented and able and capable and fantastic and amazing Trae Holiday.
Hey, man, that was an amazing interview you just had. I love being able to actually watch, because a lot of the times folks don't know in between I'm like doing other things. So that was amazing to be able to watch that interview. Great work, man.
Yeah, no, Justin at CapitolHillSeattle.com, they've been, just consistent in their coverage for the last few years. You know what I'm saying? And he is, and that platform, I said, has always covered things in the Central District, you know, where we're from and everything else. So not only here at Capitol Hill, but man, he's really a beat reporter. He's out here. He covers it. He studies it, and so it's always good to get good insight from him.
I love being able to hear from people in our city that love our city. I think so many voices have been on the CHOP, Chaz, this whole protest that really don't love our city like that. And so to hear that from Justin, to have that insight about, you know, our elected officials, I just love being able to get that perspective for myself personally.
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of Seattle moving forward to what we aspire to be as a city is going to be pushed by people who love the city. And, you know, love can't even be defined by, you know, are you left of an issue or right of an issue? Because I think that, you know, if we have one common goal, that we love the Emerald City, then those things fall to the wayside and we find the best way to push our city forward.
That's right, man. That's right. And I think that journalism is an anchor to that too, because it's about the storytelling. Like he said, I loved hearing him say that he was hoping that someone like yourself, he's like you, would be able to rise up and do this. And it really is a testament to how people have been absorbing the content. Because again, it's being able to get it from somebody who loves the city in a way that can give that good perspective.
Yeah,
you know?
man, I love Seattle.
Yes.
You know, I mean, since I was a little kid, you know, I've been swimming in Medgar Evers Pool, walking over there, you know, after school to Douglas Truth Library. You know, I mean, it was 1984, Bubbling Brown Sugar, 1984, where Ezel's famous chicken, the very first one, opened up right there on 23rd and Jefferson. And now it's like 19 or 20 Ezel's, everything else around. You know, walking to the corner store, to the Littles or the Jordans, you know. And man, as a young kid watching that Garfield high school basketball team, the men and the women, like, man, a small kid in the bleachers. Like I remember Seattle had Kids Day. You know, and that, remember Kids Day?
Yes.
You go down there to Seattle Center, you could ride transit for free and everything else, man. And you go down there. And I mean, when I was a kid, Seattle really celebrated children.
Yes.
You know,
so true.
and amazing thing. And also, today's the first day without a hat you guys seen in a while. And I've been wearing this UW hat for a minute because I don't know where the rest of my hats are. But, you know, I'm a lifelong Mariners fan no matter what, because when I was a kid and up there at CAYA, you know, those are the days where Harold Reynolds, Alvin Davis, they come up there and they give us tickets to go see the Mariners as small kids. We're in the Kingdom. You know, that act of kindness all those years ago when I was a little kid, lifelong Mariners fan. It doesn't matter to me. Mariners can do no wrong, because when I was a little kid, you know, Harold Reynolds, Alvin Davis, they were like, man, come watch us play baseball. And, you know, went down there to the Dome. So, I mean, I have stories of an amazing, fantastic childhood right here in the Emerald City. And, you know, I mean, just because we go through challenges as a city, man, I'm not going to throw all that away. Right. I'm going to love harder. I'm going to love my city even harder, and, you know, and see how we can all work together to get through it.
Absolutely. And I think that that's one of the resilient pieces of our city, right? And what I've been seeing is this amazing rainbow coalition of people coming together who are wanting something different, wanting change. But you are so right. These two of us right here really love our city. When you're talking about Jordans, I'm going to tell you right now, man, almost every day after Garfield High, because I lived on 25th. So I'd go straight down 25th and walk back and forth down 25th to get home. And I never forget those crows following me from Jordans all the way to the house, man. They wanted those chicken bones, man.
Yeah. And then right there, quick pack. You know what I'm saying? MLK and Jackson. That's what I'm saying. It's like, man, you know, I mean, I'll be honest with you. We grew up very poor in Seattle, but Seattle was the kind of place where, you know, poverty was secondary because of so just the nature of the neighborhood and the nature of the city and who our city was. You know what I'm saying? So, and, you know, I mean, you can't always put things in a time machine and things like that. But, I mean, it's important to be able to recall on the reasons why we love our city.
Absolutely.
You know, so moving on here, we got something to do with this art. So we got invited yesterday, and actually we're going to clip together the actual video for you, for our viewers. But we got invited by Seattle Department of Transportation to go down to King Street Station and that's where the Seattle Office of Arts and Culture is at as well. And they showed some spaces there for the cataloging and initial curation of all the murals and art that was here in the CHOP. Which one do you guys have on the screen?
I can put up the tweet or the photos.
You can put up the photos. So in these photos, and also people can go to my Twitter, and it's probably been retweeted by the Converge Twitter. But you'll see some spaces here. They show 3 different options to be able to put the art, and the city arts and culture and SDOT, they have both hit me and wanted to be very clear, and they wanted to be able to get the message out. And I really like how this guy Matthew over there at Arts, he was like, look, man, thanks for coming through, this and that. I saw you tweet it, but I think that, man, there's some information that we want to make sure that people understand. So the arts and culture's position is they're right now basically going to be the qualified custodian. SDOT isn't qualified to manage art. And they're doing their part. They got the art, they uninstalled, they stored the art. And so what they want to basically do is hand over to arts and culture, who actually knows how to catalog, how to curate, and all these kind of things, to put it there. And basically the city's position is, the city is saying that they don't want to personally show any art, as in public or museum or anything, if that's not what artists want to do. So their next step, and you tell me, Bobby, if I'm not getting it right. So their next step, or what the arts and culture is saying, is they want artists to be able, if artists want to take their art back, they want to, say, hey, here's your art, you know what I'm saying? Or if they're like, hey, we want to donate it or whatever. But the city, the arts and culture, was very clear that they're not wanting to appropriate the art, put it in a museum, find it on eBay or something like that. And they really wanted us to help them get that message out, arts and culture, get that message out, that that's not their position. So their position right now is, hey, all this stuff is in an SDOT storage container. SDOT's going to deliver it over there, and they're going to put it in one of the rooms that we showed in the pictures. From there, their professional staff is going to catalog everything, identify everything properly. And then what? Right. Okay. So right. And so some of the artists and everything else will come in there, and it's cataloged. And then people who made the art, like there's some artists who are identifiable. It'd be interesting, like Henry. And we saw the artist Henry making his art. Is Henry gonna come and take back his art? Or is Henry gonna be like, hey, we're gonna put it somewhere? But that's down the road. But the city is not trying to put the art on display and say, hey, this is the art from the CHOP.
Well, I think that's the way to do it in the new normal, and I'm glad that Bobby was able to uplift that other piece of information, that not only is the Office of Arts and Culture going to be curating it, but in conjunction with protesters and artists from the movement, which is super, super impactful. And I think that when we talk about inviting folks in, again, a lot of people are tired with the top-down approach. So this seems like the right way to do this, and it's great that they have all of the art. There was that kind of lull. People wondering if they don't
have all of it, because a lot of the art was stolen. Well, a lot of the art was stolen. I mean, we saw that, like, and it was crazy because people would wait till early in the morning or whatever. So especially a lot of the actual paintings and stuff like that were on the East Precinct. I mean, people were even taking down the plywood. They were on businesses. They'd come in the middle of the night, and they would uninstall it and everything. I mean, and there's art from the CHOP that's already on the internet, and and everything else. And so I mean, a lot of people who are not from Seattle, that might be watching this broadcast when we talk about the art, man, this is just something that people feel passionate about in this city. In Capitol Hill is the arts district. Other people might be watching from a city where they might be passionate about other types of things. But Seattle has always been a city that's invested a lot in arts and artists and everything else. And also, like we heard Justin talking, right? You just never know how this is going to end up. And, if these sweeping changes never come from City Hall, one of the only things that might remain from this whole situation and protest season here might just only be the art.
Yeah, I think that's also why it's so important, as we saw so many people pulling together content also around this movement. And we've seen that in times of history. You don't know how a story is going to unfold when people, there's a civil unrest. And I think that there were a lot of people just capturing the story, and the artists were doing that too in their amazing ways. And so I think that this story, in terms of the uprising and people being done, that has been, I've seen so many pieces of art that just showcase it right away. A glimpse of art. One of the artists that I know, the painting behind you, Nate, he was one artist. That painting right there of superheroes was at the very first show at the King Street Station. So they really are trying to stay connected to community artists and make sure that that's not some type of elitist space, because sometimes art means, it's like, oh, let me get my wine and my cheese. And sometimes it doesn't connect with certain communities.
You be
but
doing
I think
wine and cheese art, Trae?
some grapes, so, a nice spread.
So if you would have been out here with the choppers, you would have had your wine and your cheese and your spray paint can.
I don't think it would have worked in that environment at all. But I definitely think that, bringing artists from the community and artists who have really utilized Capitol Hill as the arts district, there's art walks and things like that. I know we've been talking about using the studio for art. So really, art really tells a story. And I'm glad that they at least have some of it there. And hopefully I could go see a show, because I think that it really, tells a real story and paints a picture.
Right. No, it's no doubt. I mean, and like I said, other cities, other cities have festivals around agriculture, you know what I'm saying, and things like that are important to their city. In Seattle, art has just always been important. So check it. We on the other side of this break, last night was a real big night. We did our Community Voices Mental Health Edition, Part 1. I think we're definitely going to have to do a Part 2. And it was really dope because we had a cross section. We had some of the medics. We had a protester. We had Joey Weiser as a streamer. Then we also had Robert. You know what I'm saying? Robert lived at 12th Avenue Arts. Robert's a veteran of the Iraq War, also suffers from PTSD and everything else. And we had an interesting conversation with him last night. You guys will remember Robert. We didn't integrate the clip into this show, but you'll remember Robert as the guy who used to come out, and the guys in CHOP would block the road, and he'd come out every morning to move all their stuff. He'd be like, man, I'm tired of this. I want my neighborhood back. I'm not with this. But anyways, Robert was one of the guests last night with Ashley McGirt, MSW, and we're going to talk about the show last night and some of the impacts of mental health. We'll be right back. You're watching the Morning Update Show. All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. And so what I was saying is that last night, man, was a real kind of special show for us. And the production people worked so hard because they put it all together in less than a day. But we had our Community Voices Mental Health Edition. And like I talked about, we wanted to get a cross cut of different kinds of people because there's this protest trauma. So there's some people who are the protesters, and some people feel sympathetic for them, and some people don't. Like, oh, well, you're out there protesting. Then there's some people like Robert who just lived in the neighborhood, and he is a Iraq war veteran who also he suffers from PTSD. And it was important to be able to talk to all kinds of different people. Like I said, we had medics here, we had protesters here, media people here, so we can get a bigger understanding of mental health impact around how the protesters have impacted people, not just the protesters. Be interesting to hear from the police as well. What their impacts have been. But anyway, here's a conversation that we had with Robert last night, and he talked about his experience just trying to live in 12th Avenue Arts, and his experience when the police and the National Guard were there, and then when the CHOP sprung up, and his determination not to let the CHOP take over the neighborhood. Basically, here's a clip.
I start briefly when SPD had control. When you seen the barricades when they was National Guard, they was deep all around the block. So we was adjusting to that. So, and then I believe June 8th, that's when everybody was surprised. The CHOP protesters were surprised that SPD left. All the residents were surprised that everybody left. And nobody knew what to do because they left early in the morning. So then by nightfall, it'd come ordeals like, okay, cool. This is how we're going to go about this. We got to arm ourselves, this and this and that. And it was alarming to see it transition so quickly. And nobody knew what to do and how to diffuse the situation, figure the situation out. And you just have to adapt to some things quicker than others. So it was rough.
So when we talked that day, you were just like, man, I'm fed up. Right. You're like, man, I'm fed up, and it was everybody was trying to stop you. You was bad. You was just like, you was giving them the old school Marshawn, just the forearm shiver, like, what I'm saying? It's like, get off me. I mean, and you move, and the thing is like clearly we could see that the street wasn't gonna open,
right.
But it seemed like that was just you every day sending a message like, nah, man, I'm not gonna let your stuff be here.
Yes, and I was just making a statement like, this street is not. We're not giving up this street.
You, as in you, the residents, weren't giving up the street to CHOP.
Me, the resident, wasn't giving up the street to CHOP because we live here. We pay taxes, all this. And the protests, we're all for the protests. Nobody was against the protests. We was against what went on after hours when the news cameras stopped recording. I believe you was the only ones that was brave enough. Right. Salute to you. So seeing that, and that was my frustration. So every time the media and the world will see me erupt, it was my frustration the day after. And anybody will be frustrated when you see young kids being killed or shootings happen that there's just no need for. And so anybody will be fed up after 2-3 weeks, after you don't know what's going on and what's going to happen day in and day out. You'll be exhausted. So coming home from work or from wherever and just to be harassed just to get in your building, and it's crazy. And these kids are armed. You don't know if they're gonna shoot. You don't know what they're gonna do. So it's like, at what point who's gonna step in? Because you see SPD, they didn't step in. They wasn't responding. It's been a few residents that called 911 several days in a row, and they had said like, we're not responding. Could you meet us outside of the CHOP boundaries and stuff? And at what point do you say, hey, enough is enough? So every time people will see me erupt, it was just like anybody would be like, hey, enough is enough. And so every day they was like, hey, like you said, they would chant, hey, we're here, we're here, we're there. And I'm like, still standing here.
All right. So you see, like, I mean, again, this is one of the things in the kind of the lane that we try to stay in here at Converge, is to be able to bring as many differing opinions, to the forefront. And I think of all the guests last night, though, Robert got the most reaction from anybody.
Yeah, because again, hearing from residents right here on the ground, there hasn't been enough of that, right? So I think a lot of people were, probably interested to hear his perspective, his opinion, and also too, hearing from a resident to say, look, we weren't against the protesters. However, we pay taxes. We wanted the streets open. It's the first time I heard that perspective.
That's a sentiment here. Well, first with Robert as well. I mean, you never know how things impact people. And like I said, he said that he got PTSD serving in Iraq. And so then he got, so then the first week it's the National Guard, it's flashbangs and tear gas. And then after that, it's the barricades and everything else. And dude was just like, man, I'm fed up on it. But a lot of the residents, when you talk to them around here, they're saying that like Capitol Hill is a neighborhood that's known for protest. And so that's not new to them. They're saying, a lot of people are saying like, man, they support the protests. A lot of people, you talk to them now, it's like, man, they support the CHOP. It was some of the things that occurred, that derailed a lot of the support. But the concept of protesters gathering and expressing themselves, you hardly find anybody up here that we've talked to who are against that concept.
Yeah, and I think that too goes back to that sentiment, right? I think a lot of people understand why people were out in the streets, why people were wanting to protest, and that also helps to sway some of that tension, you know what I mean? So it was really good to hear from Robert, and great setup for the crew, man, yesterday. That was a great job.
Exceptional production crew here at Converge. Exceptional. And they, man, under a tight timeline, they're able to pull it. So that show, that's on all of our platforms, Nikki? All right, so you can catch a replay of Community Voices Mental Health Edition on the Converge Facebook page and on our YouTube page, our YouTube channel, all under ConvergeMedia. And I'm sure that they'll probably put in some clips, especially like these clips of people like Robert and some of the other people, the medics talk to, about their experience. We'll put those up on our Instagram as well. So people can check that out.
Nice. Got to have it everywhere, man. People are getting their content from all over. So it's great that Converge is also all over.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, we're getting ready to get out of here for today. We got an early show because we got some other stuff we have to get to this afternoon. But any words before we get out of here?
I'm just happy to be part of this team. And I'm happy to be bringing back Chats with Trae this week. We will have an episode on Friday. So I'm really excited for that, man.
Good
Great
stuff.
going on.
He's getting the snaps over there from the young producer, huh?
Yeah, there we go. He's ready.
Yeah, snaps up. All right. Well, that being said, we're going to get out of here for today. Time to stand up.
Yes, sir.
All right. So catch us tomorrow at 11 a.m. for another episode of the Morning Update Show. Until then, we're out of here.
Peace.
Peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun.